Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the Get Up and Dad podcast, the podcast where we interview hardworking parents doing incredible things. This could be anything from a super duper tech dad to a busy business mummy blogger.
Let's get up and dad!
Today we have on the show, we have Danielle, and can we just start off by, just to give some people some context, how many kids you have and how old are they?
Okay, so my name is Danielle Donohoe. I have one little girl, Elsie, who is 17 months old this week. And Elsie was actually a twin who we lost at between 18 and 19 weeks during my pregnancy. So one little girl here and one little angel above the clouds.
Okay, so can you just, if you were going to explain to when your child grows up, how would you explain to them, and they're looking for a job, how would you tell them what you do to kind of give them sort of ideas?
Well, I suppose I've always kind of done a wee bit of everything. So I always say my main job career is as a freelance marketing advisor. So I work a lot with small businesses, helping them with their social media, advising them and working with other influencers on how to do that well and successfully. And then I also do the vlogging thing, which I'm kind of a little conscious of how we term it these days, because I think there's so many versions of blogging and influencing and things like that. I don't really write a formal blog anymore. I used to, but I just found people more and more want instantaneous information and aren't taking the time to read in the same way. So I find the sort of microblogging from an Instagram or Facebook platform seems to be working better. So in terms of explaining that to Elsie growing up, I don't know. I hope that she watches and learns as she goes along, and she can pick up from what she likes and what she doesn't like.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible because it's the kind of thing that you're constantly documenting.
Exactly.
And this is kind of one of the things that I love. I mean, I put up stuff with the kids all the time, and they're going to be able to see that whenever they grow up. This was actually what happened. And it's going to be interesting, because we're now at an age when they turn 18, there will be blogs out there and stuff. So yeah, that's a
exactly. And I think it's kind of important too, because maybe it'll change with our generation growing up, but I kind of find with parents talking to kids younger, you know, even when I talk to my own parents, they give they'll recount stories or memories, but you don't really get a feel on how they maybe felt about it. Whereas I feel like Elsie's going to know exactly my feelings around her birth, around her growing up, when she took her first step. She can read how I felt at that time, and I think that's pretty amazing. I think we'd all love that insight into our own life, and as much kind of gets banded around, and I know some people are a little funny about putting kids on social media and protecting their privacy in certain aspects as well, but I think that's one of the really great things about it, that they're able to look back and live their life again through how much we loved, cared, and got excited by those small things that they do.
Exactly. And in terms of marketing and your job, what would you say is kind of a misconception or a common myth on it?
In the marketing side of things, I think marketing in general is quite a difficult one, because people lob it into one category, and as we all know in this day and age, there's so many elements to marketing. You've got digital marketing, offline, social media marketing is a whole ballgame on its own. So I think sometimes people just expect you to market their business or whatever, and there's a lot of aspects, whereas I'm very quick to point them in the direction of experts. For instance, I take on nothing to do with sort of Facebook ads and things like that, the tech behind social media. I'm more about content production. So if someone's looking at that, I'm going to point them to someone else in that direction. And I think some people believe that if you are a marketeer that you're able to do all those things, and I'm sure there's some people who claim that they can, but my belief is that you kind of home in on your specific area and your talent and what you're good at, and you kind of stick with that and make sure you're getting the most for businesses in that area.
Okay. And has there been anything particularly that's helped you in order to get to where you are now?
I think I have always been an absolute sponge, and I've never been afraid to ask questions. I was that annoying person in class. It was like, I don't get it. No, I still don't get it. And I never let a teacher go until I fully understood what was going on. And as annoying as that was at the time, probably for other people, it never bothered me. It bothered me more to nod and agree if I didn't understand. And I've been the same the whole way through my working career. It didn't matter who was in a boardroom, at what level. Rather than nod and agree, if I didn't understand the task I was being set or what we were being asked to do, I put them through their paces until I got it. And I think that's so important. I think we kind of live in a society where we all feel the pressure to be the best and to understand everything and to be highly intelligent and things like that. And sometimes it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to say, I don't know. And that's the only way we learn, that we're not sort of bluffing our way through things. So yeah, just take on every opportunity and soak up as much information as you can, and don't be afraid to say, I don't get it.
And what would you say, maybe who've explored that area and have decided to get up or give up, what would you say is maybe the biggest reason for them failing?
Failing in sort of working in marketing, do you think?
Or producing content?
In producing content. As in a business producing content?
Yeah, as in a business.
I think sometimes it's consistency, and kind of the old adage goes, you kind of have to just keep going. Everything, you don't just put a piece of content out and it's going to go viral. Unfortunately, it does happen, but it very rarely happens. And I think it is just that consistency to keep going, to have a plan and know that it's not going to be one or two pieces. It's going to be one or two pieces a week. And, it might take 6 months, 6 years to get till, a point where you're really happy with it and you're getting a lot of following or you're getting a lot from it. But at the end of the day, it's that sort of commitment to it that is really important.
I know you're working with a lot of businesses. I mean, what were some of the difficulties they're maybe having?
I think sometimes, because I work with a lot of small businesses, and a budget to afford a specific marketing person just isn't there. So it tends to be a lot of business owners who are, the content producer, the accountant, the person, the customer service advisor, the person that makes the tea. They tend to be having to do all these roles, so it can be hard to concentrate on it. And they're comparing themselves to these big businesses who have teams of specific marketers in there, just literally spending their day thinking of content and creating it. And smaller businesses don't have that luxury. And I say that to them all the time. Don't beat yourself up. You don't have the luxury of having someone like me or 5 of me in your business all day, every day, just thinking marketing. You have to think of other things. You have to think of your customers, think of your business, different business aspects. So you kind of have to give yourself a break and say, look, I'm not going to be able to do all that, but let me set aside this amount of time to create these goals that aren't going to compete potentially with those massive businesses, but that's okay as long as they're moving you more towards your goals, whether that's more sales, more customers, or greater exposure.
Brilliant. So that's a lot of work perspective. What would you say is your favourite get up mum thing to do with baby?
Right. Well, Elsie's at a great age at the minute because she still doesn't really get the value out of sort of money things or, going to places. So she just loves being outside. The other day we went up to Tannockmore Animal Farm, which was brilliant. So
have to get them outside.
Oh, completely. So she just loved running around, seeing the cows and the sheep and the chickens and just getting her hands dirty. So it's just, and you know what, it's lovely to see. It reminds you that kids don't need an awful lot. And it can be hard because we get caught up even being on social media and you see all these new products and all these brilliant companies with these different programs for kids and all, which, some of them are absolutely fabulous. But you also remember that sometimes you just have to open the door and let them out and they get as much if, you're with them, they can get as much learning and as much fun out of it as anything else, so... Brilliant. Yeah, definitely.
And how do you kind of manage that work-life balance in terms of jumping into mum zone and then jumping into work zone?
I'm quite lucky because of what I do in freelance marketing, there doesn't really, except potentially if we have, and if I'm helping a business plan an event or something, but usually there's not a particular time restraint on it in a sense of what time of the day I have to work. So I tend to be full-time mum most days of the week, and Elsie goes to bed between 6:30, 7:15 most nights, and then 7 o'clock to sort of 9, 9:30 tends to be my business hours where I can just literally be in work mode, and then an all day Wednesday, which is why I'm here today. But I'm lucky in a sense that what I do allows me to work different hours or in the middle of the night if I need to, because it's content and it's just been created, and I don't really have to meet anyone in that sense. So yeah.
Brilliant. So in terms of your pregnancy and your birth story, can you tell us about that?
That's a long one probably, but I'll try and surmise as best possible. So yeah, I found out we were pregnant in January 18 or so. Yeah, about January 18. And yeah, we actually had a few kind of scares early on with bleeds and different things like that. So I actually got taken in quite early, and then we discovered it was actually twins we were having. So which was amazing. There's no twins in my family or in my husband's family, so it was a bit of a shock, completely out of the blue. But it was lovely all the same. So we kind of started on that journey, and it was one of those things people said to me, you've been very open sharing your journey, but the way I felt was at that point in time with social media, I was sharing so much about my life. It was kind of one of those things that I couldn't really ignore visually. For one, and then also it was a huge chunk of my life and what it was taking over at that point in time. So yeah, everything was going great. I had actually a really good pregnancy despite everything else, no sickness, no nothing, and we got through our first few scans, everything great, and then we went back to our 20-week scan, which is the big one that they test all the little functions and all of the babies out. They discovered that our second little girl, Ellie, had actually passed away at that stage. So it was tough now, it definitely was. It's something nobody prepares you for, and something I suppose that I didn't think would happen to me. And I think that's kind of, unfortunately, how as women we all feel. We spend so long thinking we're just going to wait and then we're going to have our kids and then this is going to happen, and we've it all planned out, and sometimes life just doesn't work that way. For me, what made it a wee bit, I don't even know if you can say easier, but what focused my attention at that point was that after I kind of had a day or two of literally just breaking down and crying, I realised that my body, that wasn't good for my body, and I had this other little person who was counting on me to keep taking my pregnant care and be healthy and get out and try and, look after my body as best possible. And that's what I did. I just focused on Elsie at that point and just kind of carried through, and thankfully everything went well. We got induced at 37, just at the end of 37 weeks. So she came a little bit early, as she's quite dramatic even today, and she came with a bit of drama as well, but always good. We had to spend a little longer in hospital afterwards just because she had a little bit of an infection and stuff, but we got home, and yeah, so far everything has been good since. But I will say that I suppose coming through something like that during pregnancy gives you a whole other perspective of it, and I probably wasn't able to enjoy the pregnancy journey post that. For me, it was more about just getting Elsie out safe. It wasn't really anything else to be enjoyed, but I think it was only after I had Elsie here safe that I was able to properly grieve or really understand what had happened with our loss of Ellie, because I just somehow boxed that and put it away until I kind of got through out the other side of pregnancy, because of the stage Ellie was, I had to carry both of them, so it wasn't at a point where she was just going to sort of come back into my body. She had to be birthed as well. So yeah.
And in terms of that, what do you think is important for women after an experience like that? It's
so hard because I'm so conscious, I suppose. I'm so vocal about what happened to us because I'm so conscious that it happens to so many. And I've heard so many stories, and I get so many messages from different people, and different people want and need different things. I suppose it's like bereavement in any sense. Some people just want left alone and they don't want spoken to. Some people need that wee bit more human connection and want names to be said out loud. I know a lot of people that have lost babies, particularly early on, really want to be able to say their names without making other people feel awkward. And this is where where it's really hitting me. Miscarriage and baby loss seems to come from the taboo around it, seems to come largely from offending other people, as in you don't want to make anyone else feel awkward, you don't want to talk about it in case it upsets someone else. So it tends to come from a place where we worry an awful lot about not what others will think, but how others will react or feel. And I think that needs to change in general. I think mummies need to get that mindset gone, and we can only do that through raising more awareness.
And I mean, what type of support is maybe needed after an experience like this?
Definitely a lot more than there is, and there's some charities out there doing amazing work, but the problem with it is that a lot of places are set up to deal with particular stages. So you have certain places that deal with very early miscarriage, and then stillbirth is something completely different again, and it's dealt with different agencies. So it's really hard to know who you're supposed to contact if they don't contact you. And then it's one of those where I know nobody came to us. We had nobody, reached out and said, we do this or we do that. By virtue of being on social media, I suppose I'm following. I know a lot of people reached out to me and said, this is a really good charity, you should really contact these, or this support group's great. So I had a massive advantage in that sense. If I had wanted to be able to go to any of those things, the knowledge was given to me, but that was by virtue of the platform I had. If I didn't have that platform, I probably wouldn't have known a lot of those existed. So a lot more information is definitely needed in that sense.
I suppose having such a big following, people were coming to you then, and then it made it easier to kind of, but for people who maybe
Exactly.
are hitting that platform, I mean, what's happening for them, you know?
Exactly. That's the only reason I'd heard of any of those things was through other people who had come through it, or maybe worked with particular organisations saying, come to us, do this. And, it is amazing. There is some really good support out there, but the information and awareness around those organisations just doesn't exist.
Okay. So currently I know you're working on a project with the council.
I am,
You want to tell me the crack there? Or?
Yes, well, I've actually been working on a project for the council for some time, but by no fault of the council, some of these procedures take quite a long time to come from emails to meetings till bigger meetings till something actually happening. So I had approached them last year, basically looking to do something within our local communities that was a bit more inclusive, that wasn't as hidden. What I became quite aware of was a lot of sort of memorial gardens, a lot of these places to go to, which were absolutely beautiful and well kept, were either within cemeteries or graveyards. So there became that sort of religious divide. Not intentionally, but it just happened to be where they were, and we live in Northern Ireland, and unfortunately that's kind of one of the elements that exist here, and it became like that. I became very aware that a lot of them were hidden, not because they were trying to hide them, but it was originally out of a sense of respect that people were just trying to protect people's privacy and things like that. But it meant that when you went to these places, that you had to follow these little paths to get down through them. I'm thinking of one in particular, and it became very obvious that if you were going down that path, you were clearly, being labelled as someone that has lost someone. And I think particularly, I think for maybe dads and grannies and things like that who struggled with it, it was too much to kind of go into those sort of situations. So I wanted something that was a little bit more in the open, and that would, as well as try and bring some comfort to families that had lost, it would also try and open up that awareness and open up that conversation within our society. Because like I said before, I felt like it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, how's this happened to me? Why, where has this come from? I'm young, I'm healthy. So, and I would consider myself quite open to things and would listen to things and would be in a lot of rooms. And yet miscarriage to me just wasn't something that I even dreamt was going to fall, hit us. So I just wanted something that people could at least be aware that this happens. And hopefully it'll never make it easier, it'll never make it okay, but it would make it feel less lonely. So my idea has been that within our local parks in somewhere that is respectfully peaceful but not hidden away, that they are going to actually hopefully create these little benches, somewhere to sit, somewhere to reflect, somewhere to talk, to have a conversation if that's what you want to do. And there's going to be two like sort of cages underneath them, and what they will house are flat stones, and people can write babies' names on them. If they just want the name, they can write a date, they can write a thought, a feeling, whatever it is, and put it back in. And the idea will be that the council will then make those into something else that will last, have longevity to it. So whether that's part of a path, the piece of artwork, whatever it is, maybe it'll just become the bench itself, the stands of it, and alongside that a little white post box in the area that people can sort of write to. And it's not, I suppose, this is the one I've struggled to explain in a sense, to not make it too dark. It's supposed to be something very positive and something very light, but any good psychologist, or if you read any of the books, will always say like writing your feelings is the best way to sort of relieve yourself of them a little bit and to kind of vent, or whether it's just to let it go or whatever. So I wanted somewhere that people could simply write down how they're feeling, if it's anger, if it's something that maybe they don't feel they can even say to their husband or to their wife, or particularly potentially for dads who maybe are trying to stay really strong for their wife or their mother if they've other kids or whatever, that they can just write whatever it is they're feeling, put it in an envelope, put it there, get rid of it, and kind of offload themselves a little bit. Yeah. Or the idea was also that if there's other siblings, like for instance Elsie, it's somewhere I would love to be able to bring Elsie someday that doesn't feel like a graveyard, it doesn't feel too morbid, and she can write a little card, or she can post a little picture to her sister if she wants, and it's her way of remembering and doing something that's a bit more child friendly and doesn't have to be from such a grief perspective. And the other point of having it within the parks was that anybody can walk past and anyone can go, what's this about? Understand a bit more. It brings the topic up, and if you're lucky enough to never have been affected, that you can literally just sit on that bench and think, aren't I lucky that this isn't somewhere that I feel I need to come. And then the other point on it was that a lot of people lose so early on in pregnancy that they potentially don't tell other members of their family. So it might only be the husband and wife, the two partners or whatever it is, that know about the loss. And later on that becomes, I know a lot of the messages I get are from people who say like, I wish I could talk about them now, but I feel like it's left too long, or I haven't said it. So, and then also they don't have potentially little bodies or anything to bury or anywhere to go to remember them. So it's kind of for those people who feel like they've had nothing, only the memory of the grief, that they can go and reflect and remember and have a place in society as well. So the idea is to do that, we push, and that the pilot, or that the council are going to put a pilot out. We talked about Cannonmore being the pilot location, which is just outside Lurgan. And hopefully if it goes down well and there's good public opinion on it, that the idea will be that there'll be one in all the local parks.
Brilliant. I think the idea is totally awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Totally my support on it.
You know what? It's been one of those things that I was really, really afraid to say out loud. Like in my head, I thought this is a good idea, but it's funny how your mind can just play tricks on you, and you think, is this going to insult someone? Is this going to annoy someone? Like I've been very clear from the start, and I'm like, I know this isn't going to fix anything. It's not this world-beating idea. It's nothing major. But for me, it's more about soft steps and progress of any sort. And I sometimes feel if we go in slapdash and heavy and want all these things, first of all you put up walls and people start to go, how much is that going to cost, and what's this going to be, and thing. Whereas if you go in sort of softer and more subtler, but also can still create some sort of change or some sort of help and support, then that's kind of where I'm going with it.
I think you're totally approaching it the right way, and I think the idea that you're coming up with is, I think it's really nice. I think it's really, really needed.
I appreciate that. I really do.
So, being mum now, then, what have you found most difficult?
Oh my gosh, I suppose it's being Danielle, because I think when you be mum, it's really hard to just be you as well. And I know that's so talked about, and you still have to find yourself and do this, but sometimes it's difficult, and it's difficult because I've chosen to be a full-time mummy because work allows me to work outside of that. But that also means that you are a full-time mummy, so you don't just get to just nip off and do these things now and again. So I suppose accepting that, but also learning to have that wee bit of attachment or disattachment, I suppose, now and again is good and healthy for both of us.
Yeah.
I think because of my pregnancy journey and everything that has happened, I look back now and I know I absolutely struggled to let Elsie go to anyone else, and I was very, very protective of her, probably up until very recently. But I was very much, I'll hold her, I'll feed her, and you look back and you say I didn't get much help, but I probably didn't accept an awful lot of help either. And I think for me now it's learning that she is okay with other people and she's okay on her own, and in fact it's good for her to kind of have that sort of social aspect as well that's away from mummy. So yeah, that was definitely the toughest.
And how old is she again?
She is 17 months this week.
17 months. So playgroups not for another year?
No, it's a wee while off yet. So yeah, I'm trying to slowly just introduce her. She's got into the sort of swing of granny, and that's about it at the moment.
I mean, my second born went to playgroup last week, and so just letting them go. It's heartbreaking.
I
know.
I can't even think about it.
I know.
It's so tough, and I think it's probably up to us to slightly create that. At the minute she thinks there's just nobody like me and I should just look after her all the time because that's what I have created. I've shown her no different. So it's now my next sort of challenge is to softly release that a little bit so that she doesn't think that it's complete abandonment when it comes to nursery time.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Just have to run out the door.
Yeah, I know. Gosh, don't. I'll probably end up training and becoming a nursery teacher trying to get a job.
So if you could have one superpower as a parent, what would it be and why?
Definitely to be able to stop time. I think every parent thinks it. I think you maybe spend those newborn days loving the cuddles but kind of wishing them on a wee bit. A lot of it due to fear because they're just so tiny that you just want them to be a wee bit more robust and want them to kind of be able to be a wee bit solider, and then as soon as they start growing up and already she's kind of pushing your hand away and wants to do everything herself and you're just like, just stop. You just would love time to stop for a little while. So yeah, if I could do that, that would be it.
Stopping time.
Yeah.
So knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself pre-mum?
Oh gosh, pre-mum as in before I was even pregnant or before I had her just?
Bit of both.
I suppose that it was going to be okay. I think, again, maybe it was my experience through pregnancy and stuff, but I just couldn't, the worry is just, and I know a lot of parents say that never goes, that sort of just, you worry about them constantly, everything. I remember even when she first started sleeping in her own room, and I was like staring at her through the night, afraid to go to sleep, and you just kept thinking, what's going to go wrong, or, I kind of had that attitude, and now I suppose I wish I could go back and enjoy it a wee bit more because things do be okay, and it's, or at least a lot of it's out of your hands regardless. And I think sometimes just to sit back and relax and take it in a wee bit more would have been nice to do. But I suppose we just can only learn from that. And she's still very young, so I'm trying now to be that wee bit more relaxed and that wee bit more let the reins go a wee bit further. And she's gonna fall. At the start, if she fell, that was it. She wasn't even allowed to stand on her own for half the day. I was just holding her up. Whereas now I understand, that's how they learn, and it's just going to be one of those things. So yeah, I suppose to relax a wee bit more and to know that things are going to work out how they're going to work out regardless, sort of thing.
Okay. So from what you do, what have you learnt from what you do, and how have you transferred that into being a parent?
Oh gosh, marketing. Well, I suppose it hasn't really come into play too much now, but I remember the whole way through my pregnancy after we lost Ellie, I just literally prayed every day and just, held my belly and was like, just please be a fighter. Please just keep fighting and don't stop. And I kind of laugh now because I have definitely got a fighter. She is the most independent. You could not change her mind if you tried. So I suppose as a marketeer, my biggest job is going to be selling things to Elsie going forward. I'm trying to convince her to do things my way now and again. So I'm hoping that some of those abilities will be able to change her mind now and again, because at the minute it's not looking very likely.
What would you say then is the next big thing for you?
Gosh, I don't know. Well, I would really, really love to see this project go through council. We're hoping for a pilot early spring and do a nice big launch with that, hopefully. And if that goes well, I'd love to see it in all the parks in this council and hopefully be able to take that, because I've already had people in other parts of the country say, could you not try and push it with ours too? So if I could get it through here successfully, I would definitely do my best to try and push it into other councils, maybe starting with Middlesex, because that's where I'm from originally. And on ahead. So that's definitely something I'd like to do. And I suppose also looking at Elsie getting that little bit older, I'd like to get back into maybe more along, work commitments, take on a wee bit more. I've been quite cautious about how many clients I'm taking on and things like that. So I suppose I'm now at the point where I could open those books a wee bit more and take on a little bit more. But I'm just kind of enjoying, for once I think I'm kind of enjoying life. Before I had her, everything was about career and speed and getting there. And that is something that everything has kind of taught me, that sometimes it just really doesn't matter that much, and what is really important. One thing I always say was, like, the one thing about my pregnancy, about losing Ellie and about having Elsie, taught me more than anything was the ability to say no. And that's something I never had in life. I've always been a pleaser. I always say yes to everything. And I suppose going through that and realising what's important and has enabled me to kind of put Elsie, put my family first a bit more, and be able to say no if it's something that I didn't really want to do or think was going to benefit us or the other person that much. And I think that's something I'm kind of really grateful for, and I wish I had learned it a long time ago. And I think there's a lot of people out there probably need to learn the value of saying no for themselves. But the strange thing that you realise when you say no a few times is that people aren't that bothered. If you have a genuine reason and it doesn't suit people, are usually like, oh, right, okay. Whereas before, that would have literally had me putting myself out to try, break my back to try and help them, when really they're going, okay, that's fine, it doesn't suit you, I'll go and get someone else to do it. And it's a tough lesson, but I hope other people learn it a wee bit sooner than I did.
Brilliant. Danielle, thank you so much for sharing everything today. If you'd like to head over to Danielle's Facebook and her Instagram and follow her, it would also be great if you could subscribe to the podcast, like us on Facebook and Instagram, and we're also on YouTube. Thanks for listening, guys.
Let's get up and down.